In this next topic, we'll move forward into the modern era, which is to say the time span of the last 2,000 years. We'll also venture closer to the Americas and see how astronomy percolated through cultures in the New World as well as the Old World. Here, for example, is the Mayan observatory at Chichen Itza, dating from 800 AD. It actually looks like a modern telescope dome, but there was no telescope in there. Telescopes would not yet be invented for a millennium. But it was an important observation point for the planet Venus, around which the Mayans built their calendar. This is in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Highly recommended to visit. At Chichen Itza, there's a Great Pyramid, and here we see that in this Great Pyramid, there's an incredible alignment built. This pyramid was constructed from tens of thousands of tons of rock, accurate to within a degree to the cardinal points, such that on the morning of the longest day of the year, and only that day, a serpent-like shadow would snake up the central pillar, up the central stairway, as you can see on the left. And on the right, you see an animation of this shadow undulating up the pyramid as the sun rises, a sight only seen on the longest day, and not the day before, and not the day after. This large crowd is gathered to witness this incredible event. So here we have a monumental piece of architecture that is commemorating a very precise and transient astronomical event. In the United States, much closer to where I live, we see this sun dagger from Chaco Canyon. This is on a cleft of rock on a high canyon wall, so very inaccessible and actually closed to the public now, where light is admitted through cracks in the rock, and it creates a dagger across onto the far wall where there's an etched spiral. And at the different times of the year, that dagger marks out the equinoxes and the solstices. So this is a calendar from the ancient Anasazi culture of 1,000 years before now, which was marking time, keeping their solar calendar in a beautiful way. We also, in Wyoming, have an example of the Bighorn medicine wheel, which is another astronomical alignment, a miniature Stonehenge, if you like. Now, let's listen to a Zuni sky story.
Coyote was a poor hunter. One night he watched the great hunter eagle and called to him, "Friend, I cannot see in this darkness to hunt." Eagle answered, "I know some light to the west. With it, everyone could see." Together they traveled to the land of the Kachinas and watched them dance around the box of light. When he saw opportunity, Eagle stole the box. After a while, Coyote grew curious. "Friend," he called out, "I could carry the box for a while." Eagle agreed to give him the box and flew a good distance away. Coyote opened the box. Out flew the moon and the sun. It was getting cold and had begun to snow. The moon had brought winter to the land. Eagle returned to discover what Coyote had done. Eagle scowled at Coyote and flew off in pursuit of the sun. Coyote cried at the moon, sorry for what he had done.
These beautiful and evocative stories are found in all different cultures in the world. The Zunis live near me in southern Arizona still, after hundreds of years. And there are hundreds of Native American tribes, and each of them have their own particular version of sky legends. And such sky legends, of course, were found around the world. Wonderful stories of human culture. Not everything survives, however. Here's an example of an artifact which we're lucky to have evidence of. The Polynesians were skilled in the art of celestial navigation. They were able to dead reckon on voyages of over 1,000 miles to within 10 or 15 miles to find an island dotted in the South Pacific, where to miss the island would have been fatal. They learned how to navigate using the stars with primitive and early versions here of a sextant. But of course, these artifacts were made with wood and they were often in a tropical culture where they simply wouldn't survive. And so we have to recognize when we look at the astronomy artifacts of the world that we have a prevalence, for example, of artifacts that survive in the Middle East and from desert cultures where it's arid and dry and things get preserved, or where the things were made from stone and carved into stone. And then there are other cultures where they were made of transient materials, materials that would not persist or survive. That doesn't mean those cultures didn't care about the sky, didn't know about the sky, didn't navigate using the sky. It just means we don't have evidence or information about it. So our knowledge of the history of astronomy and how people used the sky and what they knew and how sophisticated their knowledge was is highly selective because it depends on the vagaries of the historical record. Let's look at another part of the world, in Africa, where also we have very little evidence that survived of these ancient cultures who had wonderful astronomy lore.
At the precipice of memories and the edge of dreams, at the remotest point of nowhere, begins the mystery of a mythical lost city, quietly counting centuries by the shift of Saharan dunes. This is Timbuktu, nothing more for many than the land of myths and ancient legend, conjured only by the farthest stretch of the imagination. Out of the sands of the Sahara arose a vast city that marked the site of great prosperity. Measured not only in gold and salt, the wealth of Timbuktu lay in the knowledge of the scholars who settled, taught, and studied here. Lawyers, legal academics, judges and doctors, astronomers, clerics, students, authors, and poets could be found amongst the traders and merchants. By the 14th century, it had not only grown into an illustrious economic metropolis, but was the soil in which exalted intellectual and spiritual thinkers from Africa, Asia, and Europe had taken root. The proverb goes, Timbuktu once led the dragon, but the dragon turned around, and now Timbuktu walks behind it. By the late 16th century, the grandeur of Timbuktu had waned, and over time, its legacy would ebb as the city slid slowly into insignificance. People once said, gold came from the south and the salt from the north. Divine knowledge came from Timbuktu. Today, these manuscripts are written testaments to a vibrant, glorious chapter in the history of African scholarship, and within them lies the detail and the ambit of this knowledge. Duggart Films is proud to announce The Ancient Astronomers of Timbuktu, a documentary film that reveals the mysteries of one of Africa's most secret places. A journey of seclusion, legend, and enigma. It reveals compelling evidence that Africa and its historic place in science must urgently be reassessed. Many of the archives are buried in dusty walls, ravaged by nature and time. Some of those already studied have crucial pages missing. Of those that remain, many are held in private libraries to which scientists need immediate access. The conservation and restoration of the archives of Timbuktu has attracted scientific collaboration from around the world. These ancient documents represent invaluable knowledge to the modern world, and the journey to their discovery demands vision, dedication, and most of all, a sense of adventure and urgency. As filmmakers, it is our privilege to document the astronomers of Timbuktu and the archives they have left us, to enthuse a new generation following in their footsteps. Timbuktu has faded into obscurity. That is about to change.
In every continent, and essentially in every human culture, we find evidence of astronomy going back thousands of years. Wonderful sky stories, richly evocative cultural legends and myths, and also some quite detailed knowledge that was of practical importance for those cultures as they tried to survive in a hostile world. We also occasionally find things that are so surprising they are almost shocking because they come so long before modern technology. There's an object that has astronomical significance as a calendar called the Antikythera mechanism. It was found in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1900, and it's been called the Mona Lisa of mechanical artifacts. It has basically caused the history of engineering in textbooks to be completely rewritten to accommodate this extraordinary object. So it was found 100 years ago in a shipwreck, but the shipwreck happened 2100 years ago. And this device, seen here in the form that it was found when it was got from the bottom of the Mediterranean, crusted and corroded and compacted, is an early version of an analog computer. Painstakingly, several research groups picked it apart, dissected it, did 3D modeling, and were able to deduce what it must have been used for. It's an incredible object. The device is made of brass. It had 76 gears. It predicted the sun, moon, and planet positions. It also predicted eclipses on 20-year cycles, and it could even track nonlinear sky motion of the planets. That's caused by their elliptical orbits, and of course it was not known until the time of Kepler that these nonlinear motions were reflecting elliptical orbits. So this is preceding Kepler by almost 2 millennia. It was probably inspired by a design that we know to be handed down by Archimedes. It was a high-value object, probably taken on a sea voyage around the Mediterranean to show off to other cultures for the sophistication of the culture that produced it, to impress other people. It would have been truly impressive as a portable calendar. It was probably mechanically powered, and in this animation you'll see the reconstruction of this object to its original form. What an extraordinary, precise, exquisitely engineered object made in the days before modern machine tools. It's incredible. And of course, when we find something like this, which is still unique, we have to wonder, what else is out there? what else did people know thousands of years ago that we haven't yet discovered? This is the end of this topic.